Noah's Ark, famous tale from Bible. Noah is mentioned in Genesis 5:29 as the son of Lamech and the ninth descendant of Adam. In the story of the deluge, Genesis 6:11, 9, 19, he is portrayed as the patriarch chosen by God to preserve the human race after his wicked contemporaries perished in the flood due to his blameless piety. If you find value in these videos, please subscribe and click the bell to stay updated. After the loss of their first two sons, Adam and Eve lived for a long time, as people in the newly created world lived for hundreds of years. Although their hearts were heavy with sorrow from the tragic loss of their sons, they did not allow themselves to be consumed by grief. Over time, they had more children, the first of whom resembled Abel, and they named him Seth. Upon reaching adulthood, Seth married and established a lineage that would last through many generations, ultimately producing the one who would save the world from God's punishment. By the time Adam and Eve passed away, 800 years after Seth's birth, their family had grown into a large clan. The land where they had lived and toiled was no longer barren and desolate. It was now filled with their many children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren who grew up and formed families of their own. That world must have been a good and wondrous place. However, as the earth became more populated, evil and corruption also grew. Among those living, only a few gained favor in the eyes of God for their love of goodness and righteousness, all belonging to the line of Seth. One such individual was Enos, who walked and talked with God as Adam had done in the Garden of Eden. Another descendant of Enos was Methuselah, who lived longer than anyone else on earth, fathering many sons and daughters during his 969 years. Among his sons was Lamech, who had a son that proved to be the most remarkable of Seth's descendants, Noah. At that time, mankind multiplied on the earth, working, playing, raising families, and forgetting their God. God looked down and saw a few men like Noah, who worked hard in the fields and treated others with kindness. In contrast, he saw many others, like the descendants of Cain, growing wealthy in their cities and worshiping things made by their own hands. Rarely did a man or woman think of God, their creator. People seem to have forgotten how to live righteously with one another, and even less how to love their God. They had become so thoughtless and ignorant that they no longer knew what was right. Or perhaps they simply didn't care to know. Something had to be done, and God issued a warning. "My spirit will not contend with the humans forever, for they are mortal. Their days will be 120 years. However, it seemed that people didn't heed his words. They ignored God's warning. Instead of changing for the better, they became worse. God saw that the world was filled with wickedness and wrongdoing. People were not only corrupt in their actions, but also perpetually evil in their thoughts and hearts. God was heartbroken by what he saw. He regretted having placed mankind in this world. In sorrow, he said, "I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created, and with them the animals, the birds, and the creatures that move along the ground, for I regret that I have made them." Yet even in those days, there was still one person who found favor in God's eyes: Noah. Like his great-grandfather Enos and his ancestor Adam, Noah walked and talked with God. Amidst a world completely corrupted, he alone lived righteously and ensured that his family followed God's ways. He had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, all of whom lived righteous lives. God said to Noah, "I am going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I am surely going to destroy both them and the earth. So make yourself an ark of cypress wood. Make rooms in it and coat it with pitch inside and out. This is how you are to build it. The ark is to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high." Noah listened to God with amazement. He had never built a boat before, as he lived far from the sea and had never needed one. Certainly he had never imagined that one day he would be asked to build an ark of such massive size. But God taught him how to build it. The ark would be constructed sturdily with a strong wooden frame, a pitched roof to prevent water from flooding the deck, and a window on the side with a single large door for entry and exit. When completed, it would resemble a giant floating house. But for what purpose? The answer came shortly after. God said, "I am going to bring flood waters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens, every creature that has the breath of life in it. Everything on earth will perish. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you. You are to bring into the ark 2 of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you. 2 of every kind of bird, of every kind of animal, and of every kind of creature that moves along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. You are to take every kind of food that is to be eaten and store it away as food for you and for them." Noah found this task strange, but he obeyed because he believed in God. It required great effort over a long time to build the ark, gather the animals, and collect and store food. This was not easy to accomplish amidst the mockery of his neighbors. He warned them of the impending flood and begged them to repent and save themselves, but they only laughed loudly at him and his enormous ark, especially since he lived far from the sea. They didn't believe they were in any danger from God. They could not fathom a flood so terrible that it would destroy everything they had, including their own lives. So they continued to laugh and live their wicked lives. Despite this, Noah persevered in building the ark, while his sons gathered the animals and food. The time had come. When God instructed Noah to enter the ark, he said, "7 days from now I will send rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights, and I will wipe from the face of the earth every living creature I have made." Noah entered the ark with his sons, his wife, and the wives of his sons. 2 by 2, the birds, animals, and creeping creatures, both male and female, followed the family of man onto the ark. Then Noah closed the door and waited. He didn't have to wait long. 7 days after God's final warning, the floodwaters covered the earth. It was the 600th year of Noah's life, on the 17th day of the 2nd month. The great fountains of the deep burst open, and the windows of heaven were opened. Water poured from the sky. People ran into their homes to escape the flood, but when they couldn't flee the rising waters, they rushed to the hills. There was no place to hide. Rivers overflowed, spilling their waters over the land. Ponds and lakes merged into even larger bodies of water, and the water levels steadily rose. The ark floated securely on the rising waters, with rain pelting the pitch-coated roof. Inside, righteous Noah and his family remained safe and dry, along with all the pairs of animals. They were the only ones afloat on the floodwaters. Though completely cut off from the earth, they had enough provisions to last for many months if necessary. It rained for 40 days and 40 nights. Outside the ark, small streams became raging rivers. The rivers turned into walls of water, transforming the land into an endless sea, dotted with small islands that had once been highlands. Rainwater combined with the ocean, swallowing coastlines and valleys. Hills disappeared beneath the surging water, and even the tallest mountains were submerged. There was no place left to flee, and escape became impossible. All humans, every animal, every bird in the sky, and every creeping thing were swept away by the flood until nothing remained in the world except a blanket of water and one solitary ark floating on the deep waters. Then the rain ceased. At the end of 40 days and 40 nights, God remembered Noah and all the living creatures with him in the ark. He sent a wind to blow over the earth to calm the waters. He caused the fountains to stop, the windows of heaven to close, and held back the rain. The great seas that had flooded the earth began to gradually recede. For more than 6 months, the ark continued to drift upon the calm sea, the only living thing in the entire world. Slowly, day by day, over the span of 150 days, the waters receded. On the 17th day of the 7th month since the rain began, the ark came to rest upon the mountains of Ararat in the region of Mesopotamia. By the first day of the 10th month, the tops of distant mountains could be seen from the ark. 40 days later, as the waters continued to recede, Noah opened the window of the ark and sent out a raven. He watched as it flew back and forth in the empty sky, finding no dry land. Noah then released a dove, knowing that if there was dry land anywhere, the dove would gently land. Unlike the raven, the dove returned, and Noah reached out his hand to bring it back into the ark. 7 days later, he sent the dove out again. This time it returned in the evening with a fresh olive leaf in its beak. Noah understood that the waters had receded enough for life to begin again, and that somewhere trees were now growing above the vast waters. Nevertheless, he waited another 7 days before sending the dove out once more. This time, it did not return at all. On the first day of the first month in the 601st year of Noah's life, the floodwaters were no longer upon the earth. Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked out upon a world full of promise, yet strange and unfamiliar. The ground had dried, but he was no longer in his homeland. God spoke to him once more, saying, "Come out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Bring out every kind of living creature that is with you, the birds, the animals, and all the creatures that move along the ground, so they can multiply on the earth and be fruitful and increase in number on it." So Noah opened the great door of the ark, the same door through which the strange crew had entered a year before. 2 by 2, each species followed Noah and his family out, stepping onto the wonderful dry ground. At last, life returned to the world. On the completely dry ground, Noah immediately built an altar to give thanks to God, expressing his gratitude for being saved. Upon uncut stones, he offered sacrifices to God, who loved him, and gave thanks for the hopes in this renewed world. God smelled the sweet fragrance of Noah's offerings and was pleased with what was in the heart of this righteous man. In his heart, God vowed that he would never again curse the land to punish humanity or destroy all life on earth. He promised, "As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall never cease." Then God blessed Noah and his sons, saying, "The earth is yours. Be fruitful, multiply, and fill it with your offspring." He granted them the land and all living things upon it. Next, God created a great ark of beautiful colors stretching across the sky. "This is the sign of the covenant between us," he declared. "I make this covenant with you, with all the living creatures you have brought with you, and with all future generations of your descendants. I place my rainbow in the sky as a reminder of my covenant with every living thing on earth. When you see it, you will remember what I have said to you, and know that I too am remembering, and this is my everlasting vow. Water will never again flood the earth to wipe out all living creatures. There will never again be a flood that destroys humanity from the face of the earth."